Let me demonstrate a few more strokes with active power generation. This is active power. When borrowing power, the stroke is more compact and in front of you. But for active power, the motion is slightly larger, and you have to deliberately apply force. So today, we're going to focus on the backhand rip. The rally we just had was all about the rip. The first key to the rip is that you should not be able to see the incoming ball. You must rip without seeing it. That is the true foundation of the rip. This means that during your backswing, the ball should be under your racket, not in front of it. If you can still see the ball during your backswing, your racket angle is set for a flat hit. Watch the pros in matches. The reason they raise their elbow is to get more spin on their rip. If you can see the ball, you might get it over the net, but it won't have spin. This is why your rips are often ineffective. As the ball bounces and comes toward you, you shouldn't be able to see it because your racket should be covering it from above. Once you incorporate this concept, you'll be able to generate power in a match. Many players take their backswing lower than the ball after it bounces, not higher, which causes them to hit the ball long. If I use this motion, I can generate power consistently, because I am covering the ball. Even if your racket isn't raised high and is level with the ball, you should still cover it with your racket face. Let me teach you a method. With the same forward motion, if I push with the center of my racket, the ball travels in a straight line. But if I hit with the tip of the racket, it will naturally create an arc. This arc itself imparts friction. Your arm might not create the arc, but the path of your racket tip certainly will. So, ripping with the racket tip is essentially creating a small, natural arc. The quality of a rip is much higher when using the racket tip because the arc is better, giving it a whip-like effect. If you hit with the center, the ball might leave the racket before your arm creates an arc. But the racket tip inherently creates rotation on contact. As soon as it rotates, the ball takes on an outward arc, created by the path of the racket tip. So, if you make contact with the racket tip, you'll get an arc automatically. If you hit with the center, the ball might just pop off, making your follow-through ineffective. Look, when the ball comes, cover it, and rip with the tip of the racket. With the same motion and force, hitting with the racket tip versus the center can result in a 50% difference in quality. I feel that too many players make contact too close to the center. At the point of contact, use the racket tip. As the tip rotates through the ball, the arc is naturally created. This arc is what gives you a powerful shot. To clarify, a standard backhand drive should still contact the ball in the center. But for the rip, you must use the tip. When your backhand leads with the racket tip, the arc is created automatically. When hitting with the racket tip, if the ball is wide, you must move your body so you can still use the racket tip to rip the ball. This way, your arm doesn't have to force an arc, it's generated naturally by the racket tip. That's why the quality is higher. Your arm is essentially just driving forward. You can't rip a backspin ball. The rip is an advanced version of the backhand drive against topspin. To review, for backhand against topspin, the foundation is the drive. The punch is a powerful version of the drive, and the rip is the advanced technique for handling long topspin balls. For short, in-table balls, the basic stroke is a flip. and the advanced one is the banana flick. Against backspin, we have to loop, and there are many different ways to loop. If I also use the racket tip against backspin, I can take my backswing more horizontally backward, instead of just downward. The principle is the same. You can draw it back without dropping the racket too low. This makes it easier to whip the ball and get more quality. A back-to-forward motion will always be higher quality than a low-to-high one. The rip is only for topspin, not backspin. The banana flick is for short and half-long balls, not deep balls. The biggest difference between a drive and a rip is the backswing. For a drive it's in front, for a rip it's further back. When driving, just place your racket here, pull back directly, and drive the ball forward. The rip involves an extra retraction of the forearm. It builds on the drive by pulling the forearm back more. Let me show you. For a drive, the backswing and forearm are like this, and you just push forward. For a rip, the elbow must be a stable pivot in the middle. The forearm pulls back. Then snaps forward. When you rip, the racket and forearm are not one rigid unit. The forearm must pull back with the elbow as a pivot, then whip through the ball. In contrast, for a drive, the elbow and the entire upper arm pull back and move forward together. For a rip, the elbow must be anchored. It can't move back and forth because the rally is too fast. If your elbow pulls back, you'll get jammed by the ball. A rip has spin. A flat drive rally might seem fast, but it's just a flat hit. So, to rip consistently, you must anchor your elbow. It's just forearm back, forward, back, forward. The elbow's position barely changes. This is a rip. This is a drive. From the side, drive, rip. It's the same for penhold grip. Drive, rip. In a fast-paced ripping rally, there's no time to let the upper arm and elbow move back and forth with the stroke. A drive is about impact, a rip is about friction. You must understand that the rip is an advanced form of the drive. When our elbow is stable, let me demonstrate with a penhold grip. For a drive, watch my hand. The whole unit moves forward and backward. Now the rip. Anchor the elbow, retract the forearm, and snap it forward. We use the elbow as a pivot for the rip because it's a friction-based shot. A stable elbow allows for a much faster forearm swing. Watch when I put some quality on it. Why learn to rip? If your opponent just flat hits at you, your rip will make them hit it out. A flat hit can't beat a quality rip. Anchor the elbow, take the forearm back, then forward. You must have that full backswing with the forearm. This is the ultimate backhand technique. For forehand topspin it's the loop, for backhand, it's the rip. Next, let's discuss why many players hit the net when they rip after raising their elbow. You've raised your elbow, but your backswing can't be perfectly horizontal. You have to drop the racket tip slightly. Look, elbow up, drop the racket tip a bit, and there's your rip. This creates the necessary upward arc. Don't just raise your elbow and pull back flat. There still needs to be a slight downward dip in your backswing. Then, your forearm should be angled to drive forward and upward. Another point, for the rip, you must also focus on your fingers and wrist. In my experience, this isn't just for the rip, but for looping, pushing, and serving as well. If you only move your wrist, you get no spin and no power. With the same motion, if you engage your fingers, the ball immediately gets heavy spin. I've realized many players use a loose wrist. Look at the effect of finger power. These two motions appear quite similar. Why are top players' serves and loops spinnier than ours? Because they use their fingers to drive the wrist at that exact moment, generating heavy spin. In that split second of contact, the ball gets immense spin because finger power is extremely concentrated. Amateur players know they should use their wrist, but because the force isn't focused through their fingers, the shot lacks spin. My feeling is that for the backhand rip, the actual friction-producing motion at contact is very small. Just this much. The reason many amateurs have a weak backhand is an unstable wrist. They flip it, bend it, press down, or slice with it. If you can't keep your backhand wrist stable, you won't be able to learn the drive, the flick, or the rip. All of these techniques require a relatively fixed wrist. Even if you play with pips, you can't just flail your wrist around. Flipping the racket, changing the angle mid-swing, swiping right, brushing left, or wobbling the wrist at contact, many players do this. To hit cross-court, their arm just moves straight, and they rely on a last-second flick of the racket. If you ask someone like that to aim precisely, their arm path doesn't change. They just rely on that flick for direction. Against any topspin ball, you can flick, drive, or rip. It's all valid. No one can dictate what you must use. The game is flexible. So at contact, your fingers should drive your wrist in a very small motion. The rest is up to your forearm and upper arm to provide the forward drive. When your arm helps drive the ball forward, your power becomes much more concentrated. The key problem for many players is that they rely too much on just their arm swing. I use my middle finger and thumb for pressure, my index finger is relaxed. The overall feeling for the backhand is your fingers driving your wrist. The friction motion is really that small. And the rest is arm power. Most importantly, how do you get power and quality? It's because the back of my hand has to be firm and engaged. The back of your hand must be engaged, held firm and solid. If your backhand grip is loose, your technique will never be strong. Look closely at your favorite players, whether it's Ma Long or anyone else. For their backhand drives, flicks, and rips, the back of their hand is extremely stable and held very firm. If you can't keep the back of your hand firm, it will wobble at impact, and you'll lose all control of the shot. When you use power on your backhand and your wrist wobbles, it's a guaranteed error. So your wrist must be held firm. Your wrist must stay firm from the backswing, through contact, to the finish. It has to be cocked back and held in that position. Once you can do that, you can flick when you want to flick and rip when you want to rip. It must be firm. The entire back of the hand is pushing forward. The back of your hand must not collapse inward, sideways, or upward. You must push it forward. Then the sequence goes: the back of the hand leads, followed by the forearm, then the upper arm. If the back of your hand and your forearm are aligned too flat, the mechanics are wrong. You see, it's the same for penhold. Push it forward, then rip, then flick. Look at my wrist. Even after I finish the rip, the back of my hand is still firm. The motion is just the rotation of the racket tip, while the back of my hand remains properly cocked. Looping needs this stability even more. Look at the banana flick, no one does it with a loose wrist. The back of the hand must be pushing out. You absolutely must push the back of your hand forward. If you want a good backhand, this is the way. Let me explain another thing. Many players have a good forehand but are reluctant to adjust their grip for the backhand because they're afraid it will mess up their forehand. You can't do that. You must use a forehand grip for your forehand and a backhand grip for your backhand. If your transition is slow, you just need to practice more. An incorrect grip will lead to flawed technique. For example, some grips cause you to slice on the forehand or push on the backhand. This is all directly related to your grip. Whether you use penhold or shakehand, during the backswing, your wrist must be cocked back and the back of your hand must be pushed forward. This position is held from backswing to finish. Look, flick, rip, the back of the hand is always leading. As for the exact angle to cock your wrist, there's no fixed rule. It's not always 45 or 75 degrees. Table tennis is dynamic. The opponent's ball has different heights, speeds, and spins. You must adjust. For a slower ball, I might cock my wrist more to whip it. For a faster ball, I'll cock it less to counter it. It's the same on the forehand. The angle depends on the incoming ball. If it's spinnier, I close the racket face. If I want more impact, I open it up. The direction of your force is also crucial. Whether you go more upward or more forward depends on the opponent's ball. Only by doing this can we play dynamic table tennis. Only then can your game become truly well-rounded.